The United States has 44 ground-based interceptors that can hit incoming missiles at thousands of miles per hour. They're housed in silos punched through Arctic permafrost at Fort Greely in Alaska and Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. 20 new silos were just completed in March, cost so far tens of billions over 2 decades. And it still isn't enough. Last year, President Trump signed an executive order for something called Golden Dome. The Pentagon set the goal: detect and destroy missile threats before they ever reach American soil. The price tag? $175 billion. The timeline? Fully operational in under 4 years. But here's the problem. Fort Greely's last 20 silos took 7 years to build using proven technology. So what exactly is Golden Dome? How are they planning to build it? And why does it cost $175 billion? Golden Dome is 3 layers that must work together perfectly, and 2 of them exist only on paper. Here's where the $175 billion breaks down. Layer 1 is the eyes in space. Between 400 and 1,000 satellites equipped with infrared sensors would orbit Earth, detecting missile launches globally within seconds. Each satellite needs ion thrusters for positioning, laser communications for data transmission, and the ability to distinguish rocket plumes from other heat sources. Manufacturing military satellites at assembly line scale has never been done. Deployment requires 50 to 100 Falcon 9 launches over 2 years. The price tag for this layer alone runs between $60 and $80 billion. As of now, 0 satellites have been deployed. In November 2025, the Space Force awarded 18 small classified prototype contracts for space-based interceptors. The Wall Street Journal reported SpaceX is set to receive a $2 billion contract for up to 600 satellites, but this larger contract remains publicly unconfirmed. Layer 2 is the fist on the ground. The United States currently operates 44 deployed interceptors. Golden Dome would expand to 80-plus interceptors, add a potential East Coast site, integrate terminal defense systems like THAAD and Patriot, build new silos, and upgrade command centers. This layer carries a price tag of $40 to $50 billion. Here's the critical difference you just can't miss. Fort Greely has 60 total silos, but only 44 interceptors are deployed across both Fort Greely and Vandenberg. 20 new silos completed in March 2025 sit empty, awaiting next-generation interceptors with delivery targeted for fiscal year 2027, though initial operational capability isn't expected until 2028. Layer 3 is the brain connecting everything together. AI-driven fire control must receive satellite data, calculate intercept trajectories, distinguish warheads from decoys, and command launches within 10 to 20 minutes with data latency under 1 second. This integration layer runs $30 to $40 billion, and nobody has demonstrated satellites can hand off tracking data fast enough or that ground systems can process it reliably when seconds matter. Add another $20 to $30 billion for next-generation interceptor R&D, infrastructure upgrades including radar arrays and fiber optic networks, plus testing, operations, and maintenance. That brings the minimum total to $175 billion. But experts warn that figure is wildly optimistic. The Congressional Budget Office estimated that deploying and operating a constellation of space-based interceptors for 20 years could cost between $161 billion and $542 billion, depending on the architecture. Defense analyst Todd Harrison of the American Enterprise Institute estimated costs through 2045 could range from $252 billion to $3.6 trillion, with the high end reflecting comprehensive coverage capable of defending against China and Russia's combined arsenals. 2/3 of the Golden Dome doesn't exist yet, but one part does, and it just finished construction. To understand what building the ground layer requires, you need to see the infrastructure. Fort Greely sits in central Alaska, where winter temperatures hit minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit, and permafrost extends hundreds of feet down. In March 2025, Boeing completed 20 new silos as part of a $6.5 billion contract awarded back in February 2018. Each silo houses a 20-ton, 3-stage ground-based interceptor. At the top sits the exo-atmospheric kill vehicle, about the size of a person, carrying no explosives. It destroys warheads through kinetic energy alone, hitting at 17,000 miles per hour with enough force that both objects disintegrate. The silo door weighs 100 tons and blows open in seconds. Fort Greely now has 60 total silos. The first 40 were built over 2 decades. These 20 new silos bring the count to 60, but only 40 interceptors are actually deployed at Fort Greely, with 4 more at Vandenberg, bringing the total to 44. The 20 new silos sit empty, awaiting next-generation interceptors. These silos weren't built for Golden Dome. The contract was awarded in 2018, years before Golden Dome existed. But they represent exactly what Golden Dome would need to expand. Potentially 20 more silos at Fort Greely and possibly an entire East Coast site. If Fort Greely's timeline is any guide, each expansion takes 5 to 7 years and billions in funding, even with proven technology. The silos work. The interceptors launch. They succeed approximately 50% of the time in scripted tests, far from actual attack conditions. What doesn't exist is the space layer to detect launches and direct when to fire. Building a space layer is where Golden Dome shifts from expensive to nearly impossible. The first challenge is satellite constellation scale. The system needs 400 to 1,000 satellites for global coverage. Each requires infrared sensors detecting missile plumes during boost phase, ion thrusters for maneuvering, laser communications, and continuous power. Manufacturing military satellites at assembly line scale has never been done. SpaceX's Starshield produces Pentagon satellites with missile tracking sensors, but current numbers are in the low hundreds, nowhere near the 1,000+ required. SpaceX appears to be the leading contender, though as of December 2025, no public contract has been confirmed beyond those 18 small prototype contracts. The second challenge is detection technology. Infrared sensors must distinguish missile launches from other heat sources like wildfires, industrial facilities, and volcanic activity. They must track through clouds at night from 600 kilometers up, identifying not just heat but specifically a rocket motor in attack trajectory. Boost phase detection lasts only minutes before the engine cuts and tracking becomes exponentially harder. Existing Starshield sensors can do some of this, but Golden Dome integration represents a significant leap. The third challenge is space-to-ground integration at machine speed. A satellite detects a launch and hands tracking data to the next satellite as the first moves out of range. That satellite transmits to ground stations where processors calculate intercept trajectories. The system distinguishes warheads from decoys, and ground control commands a launch. All of this must happen within 10 to 20 minutes with data latency under 1 second. This seamless handoff across satellites in different orbital planes moving at high relative speeds has never been demonstrated. The Government Accountability Office warned in early 2025 that satellites being developed for Golden Dome have not been able to demonstrate reliable links between different orbital planes due to high relative motion. The fourth challenge is launch campaign execution. 50 to 100 Falcon 9 launches over 2 years means one launch every week to 10 days for 24 consecutive months without delays or failures. At 60 to 70 million per launch, that's 3 to 7 billion in launch costs alone. SpaceX has demonstrated this cadence with Starlink, but never for military hardware requiring high reliability and security protocols. In January 2025, Trump signed the executive order launching Golden Dome. In May, he selected a design to be fully operational by January 2029, giving the Pentagon under 4 years to deliver. The administration promised design selection in May 2025, demonstration by 2028, and full operational capability by 2029. The reality looks very different. Congress appointed $24.4 billion through 2029, only 14% of the $175 billion needed, with the remaining funds requiring future congressional authorization. The Space Force awarded those 18 small prototype contracts in November for early-stage interceptor development, but 0 satellites have been deployed. The Pentagon aims for prototype demonstrations of next-generation missile defense technologies by 2028, far from fully operational. Defense analysts estimate realistic completion between 2030 and 2032. The timeline challenge becomes clear when you break down what's required. Satellite design and testing takes 1 to 2 years. Manufacturing ramp-up takes another 1 to 2 years. The launch campaign requires 2 years minimum. Integration testing needs at least 1 year. Fort Greely's 20 silos took 7 years using proven technology from contract award in February 2018 to completion in March 2025. Golden Dome's space layer demands designing, testing, manufacturing, launching, and integrating unproven technology in 4 years. The administration announced $175 billion as the total cost on May 20, 2025. Earlier Congressional Budget Office analyses examined space-based missile defense architectures with 20-year costs reaching into the hundreds of billions of dollars. Defense analyst Todd Harrison estimated costs through 2045 could range from $252 billion to $3.6 trillion depending on system architecture, with the high end reflecting comprehensive coverage against China, Russia, and North Korea's combined arsenals. The cost risks are substantial. Technology development always exceeds initial estimates as unforeseen challenges emerge. Integration problems requiring redesigns add years and billions. Satellites in low orbit experience atmospheric drag and require replacement every 10 to 15 years. Operations alone cost billions annually. Then there's the SpaceX subscription controversy. The company reportedly proposed the government pay to use satellites rather than own them, lowering upfront costs but creating vendor dependency. If SpaceX raises prices or experiences disruptions after the system is operational, the government has limited leverage. For comparison, each current interceptor costs $70 to $90 million. Next-generation interceptors will cost more. Boeing's Fort Greely contract ran $6.5 billion for 20 silos and supporting infrastructure. Golden Dome is 25 to 30 times Fort Greely's scale. $175 billion starts to look less like total costs and more like a down payment. If Golden Dome succeeds, it would be the first true space-ground integrated missile defense at global scale. Continuous coverage, detection within seconds, and potential boost phase intercepts before missiles release decoys. That's the promise. But here's what doesn't change. Current interceptors succeed in approximately 50% of tests under scripted conditions with known parameters, far from actual attacks using countermeasures. Hypersonic weapons maneuvering unpredictably at 5 times the speed of sound remain extremely difficult to intercept. No system achieves 100% effectiveness. Golden Dome depends on AI making split-second decisions with no room for errors. America has proven it can build missile interceptors in the Arctic that work roughly half the time under test conditions. Fort Greely exists as proof the ground component is buildable, though expensive and time-consuming even with established technology. Golden Dome asks whether the same country can build something orders of magnitude more complex, manufacture satellites at unprecedented scale, launch them in under 3 years, and integrate everything seamlessly with ground systems that must function perfectly during a brief window with no human intervention. That's the $175 billion question. Or, if Congressional Budget Office analysis proves accurate, the $831 billion question. Do you think Golden Dome represents a worthwhile investment, or should the US focus on alternate strategies? Let me know in the comments.